Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Neil, Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, Father of a Stolen Child, Eli, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning, all.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. What a beautiful morning it is. The birds are singing.
Hello.
The worms are crawling around in the nice wet grass. It's absolutely idyllic. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
How do worms crawl?
They kind of wriggle.
Just ruined the
don't
baller's morning.
They take the shape of the earth.
they? Wriggle,
and
wriggle.
All around the sphere.
They wiggle. Worms don't have claws.
I think their position now is just because it disappears doesn't mean it's obstructed. What kind of bizarre thing for them to say?
Well, they've
Yeah,
got to
that is their
automatically
position,
beg the
yeah.
question of assumption. And that would be an assumption of Earth curve getting in the way.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Alan.
Hola.
Earth curve, you say?
Earth curve, yeah. Any evidence thereof on your travels over the weekend from your chat?
Well, beyond your sight capability, there might be some curve there in a quantum flux state.
I knew that was coming.
I have something to say.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, well, it doesn't have to be me, but I'm thinking about setting up or being part of setting up a GoFundMe. And the whole point of the GoFundMe is twofold. One is to build a fund to build up, let's say, a pretty good amount of cash, maybe 1,000 or whatever, 2,000. And the whole point of this cash, the first part, is a challenge to any surveyor anywhere in the world to measure our curve. And the second part of the GoFundMe is money so we can then rent what we need or do what we need. Let's just say Bev and Rodney B, who has, so they both have stuff anyway, because Rodney B is a surveyor anyway. But there's other people out there. But the whole point is that we can then replicate what they are saying. Let's say if anyone would come forward, because I predict that absolutely nobody will come forward, because whatever they say is going to be replicated to see if what they're saying is possible. No, I know it's not. I know all they have is mathematics that they infer after they do flat plane measurements. So,
I think, to be honest, I think we just need to go for it.
One second. I'm almost done. So the point is to put it out there for any planar or geodetic surveyor to measure our curve, and you'll go from step 1 right through, right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we will replicate what they did, and we will support that they did it, or we will debunk that they did it. Now, I know what's going to happen. Anyone who will come forward only someone like a complete and utter chancer like Jesse Kozlowski will come forward. And if he'll even do that. But the point is that now the ball is going to be in their court. Now, show your measurements. Show how it's done, and we'll replicate it. And I guarantee you, they will absolutely run. Now, go on,
It
sorry.
only exists in the maths. All we need is an English teacher to teach them the difference between calculate and measure. If we can get that across to them, then I think we'll be able to. I think that's it. I think we've won.
Well, this is better for the world, though. Because we're showing there's nobody capable of measuring this 8 inches per mile squared drop that they claim.
Well, what they'll do is they'll go to the geometric horizon, and then all you'll have to do is show the black swan, and they'll claim that it's a refracted horizon.
Then it's not the geometric horizon.
It's about the measurement.
Yeah, but the claim is that geodetic surveyors are measuring Earth curve every day of their work.
No, geodetic. Is that what they claim? They're claiming that geodetic surveyors measure.
Planar surveyors.
No. Stop. Let's get it clear. The trench level fundies who believe they're on a sphere would assert that geodetic surveyors go out and measure the curve of the Earth daily. Geodetic surveyors would explain how they take a zenith measurement to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth and compare that position to a datum. Upon comparing their position to the datum, they then map out a tangent plane. Tangent based on their presupposition, and plane what they'll actually measure. With Cartesian coordinates, not spherical, non-Euclidean geometry.
Yes, but this is the thing. Part of the whole challenge is they have to actually measure with their tools. They can't use GPS. Not that GPS matters. Not that any of that matters. But GPS is going to pre-assume. It's going to pre-assume because of how it works. Its data is going to pre-assume afterwards. Even though it'll be showing all flat plane. Everything with GPS is, and GNSS is all XYZ. But it's all flat plane coordinates.
Yes.
But
that is the
conversion.
Their inherent problem comes from that, though, doesn't it? So, has this not already been done, Brian? Have we not already got very accurate maps and measurements of the ground that we dwell atop? Oh, yes, we definitely do. And what do they all show, Brian? Do any of them show 8
Flat
inches per
plane.
mile drop?
No, Nathan, the flat plane, the most accurate maps you can get are ordnance survey maps, and they're all flat plane XYZ coordinates maps.
So in terms of how the world has been measured, be it by a surveyor that assumes tangent plane, or one that just measures the plane and doesn't make any presuppositions about being on a sphere, they're all measuring it and then presenting it as flat, correct?
Correct.
So it's already been measured and it's already flat.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No.
Coriolis is selective.
You and your
Lockstep
reference frames have been
motion.
ruined.
Hmm?
You and your reference frames have been ruined.
Yeah, it's just a quantum flux thing or something. Sometimes Coriolis deviates, sometimes it moves lockstep for some reason.
Yeah. Actual
Probably has to
Coriolis
do with
doesn't do that, though.
observing the things. When you observe something, then it doesn't actually deviate. But when you just think about it, then it does deviate.
I see. So in physical terms, we don't have any Coriolis effect, therefore we don't have any proof Earth spinning.
How can you have an axis without a radial value?
Yeah, indeed. That's a much shorter route to debunking the claim of axial rotation by way of the Black Swan. Another twice in one show. That's another set of props to John. Kudos. You got there in the end.
You do have a radius value. It's the equator line.
Well,
How can you have an
Can
axis
they-
of
And what's the
rotation?
equator line?
Hold on. How can you have an axis of rotation without a radial value? That's Black Swan debunking axial rotation of the Earth-based variety in 2 sentences. That
you can't
has brought a
see-
big smile to my face, John. That is brilliant.
You can't see the geometric horizon, but you can still calculate R.
You can't. We've
Well-
debunked our Black Swan. Any evidence of
Yeah,
R?
you can.
Any evidence of R? Earth radius.
I have something else to say before you go further.
Okay, axial rotation or Earth curve?
So actual rotation.
Okay, go ahead.
They would have to, with their current claim, from their current mainstream science claim, that the air moves around in lockstep with their globe, they would have to prove that gas can create a friction boundary layer with a surface. What that means is that when you store your coffee, what happens is that it stops swirling after a while because a friction boundary layer starts between the liquid and the surface of the edge of the cup, right? But that's liquid. They'd have to prove that gas does this.
Okay. And
But they don't have a globe.
if you've got something like a roundabout that's obviously solid, you can understand that stuff that's attached to that solid surface that's rotating would rotate with it. You can understand that, right? Because the thing is solid. It's got bonds between the solid surfaces, right? That makes sense. Now with a liquid, again, it's got bonds, right? It's all clinging together, so you can understand how the motion of the sea can push a boat along, for example, because it's all bonded together. Is gas bonded?
Nope.
No.
So one of the fundamental principles of what gas is that it isn't bonded to other things. But they want to describe how it's moving stuff along with it in lockstep when it's completely unbonded.
I got a question. If the Earth and the atmosphere move together and you're on a roundabout, then wouldn't you not feel a breeze?
Any surface wind
Hold
debunks
on.
this claim.
You're presupposing something that's absolutely impossible, but sure.
But they already say that planes, when traveling for long distances, are going to experience some sort of drift. Like, so
I object.
why don't they? No, I mean, it's out there. We're not saying it. It's just out there when you Google it.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I was just objecting to the roundabout because it has a radius. They need to show a radius to Earth before we
that's
can
it.
move forward in the conversation.
That's definitely a fast shortcut, John. That's why I was giving you such big props. You can cut this head off this guy. I was waiting for this day. It's epic. What's that? Axial rotation of the Earth-based variety. Well, if you're going to claim rotation of any description, you're going to need a radius. Aren't you? Bye conversation. That's gone from, I would say, at one stage when I started getting into debating Coriolis, sometimes it could take 3 to 4 hours. Now it's 2 sentences. This is a great day.
Oh, yeah,
Can you run that by me again?
Let's ask the question. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? John?
You require a radius to have axial rotation. We'll need a measurement of the radius first.
That's unfortunate, John, because it's been debunked by the Black Swan. That geometric value no longer exists. We do not see the geometric horizon. So the assertion of a radius value to measure the axial rotation with is therefore debunked. No axial rotation without a radius.
Yeah, John found out that he was part of basically a pyramid scheme in the start of 2020, and he's not listening to any nonsense or begging any questions from here on in. Show me your radius.
That's how
Right.
it should
If you
be.
can't measure it, it's not real. I want to see, measurements
saying it.
now.
Keep saying it. You say it in the comments, and I put a little heart next to it every time I see it, because you're absolutely correct. Now, as time goes by, even I, who appreciated how devastating the Black Swan, is slightly taken aback each time something like this happens. Oh my God, it really is devastating. And the summary of that devastation is what John has just said. If you can't measure it, it's not real.
I feel that as a baller, I'm being ignored.
No, you're being destroyed.
You're
not a
hand
baller.
waving my argument. We can still have a radius. We can calculate it.
Well, yeah, but you can't measure it. So what are you calculating it from? A presupposition that it's going to be close within 5% of something that cannot be seen and cannot be measured to verify how close it is within it? It's a nonsense, Arwin. You know it. It's labelled... This is the irony of this statement from
Refraction.
Arwin, right? We have named this very paradox the Arwinian paradox because it was him that was first pointing out that it's a paradox. You can't move the horizon with an R value unless you've got an R value. Well, there's a lot of things that you can't do without an R value unless you've got an R value, and that's where John's now highlighting that for axial rotation. But in the midst of that, we've got Arwin going, but you can still calculate it. It's paradox.
No, but
Ow.
look, you're overlooking terrestrial refraction. Yeah, it's a paradox, but there's other ways, right? So I'm not actually basing the measurements on visuals to establish like a geometry. No, I'm just calculating it using the equator length.
Or you
That's
could
the
do
lead.
it.
There's a lead there.
all this talk about paradoxes. We're gonna get into this later on. Because
Or
I
you could
agree.
be like a cool
I,
virus.
I'm like secretly saying you're right. Seems to go, but no, there's a paradox in there. Anyway, I'm just ruining everything for no reason because I'm not.
Well, that's why I'm bypassing my own paradox that I figured out. By literally saying, yeah, you can't measure Earth curve based on optics because the geometric horizon is never going to be where it's supposed to be due to the paradoxical situation we're at.
But the
You can't still
equator line,
calculate it.
but the equator line was established after they thought they measured the geometry of Earth. So it's still built
No.
upon the geometric horizon.
No, it
because
wasn't.
they equated it with the celestial movements. That's how
Yes.
they built the map.
Yes,
Right.
but they not based on the
assuming Earth is a
horizon, though.
sphere.
Yes.
Assuming Earth is a sphere.
Arwin
But
wants
what's
to...
wrong with that? If the Earth is a sphere, then why can't you presuppose it?
There it is. There it is. Because we've debunked R.
No, you haven't. You just have debunked the method of calculating it or measuring it using optics. But you can still presuppose it using the equator length, which is there.
No, it isn't.
No,
Show me-
that's
show me the
going in a
equator.
circle and saying
What, you're
it's a
denying that
sphere.
the equator length exists?
Show me the equator length. Show me the equator.
It's over there.
Show it me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have the travel capabilities currently to do that.
There is no such thing as the equator. It is completely arbitrary. It is assigned based on the movement of the celestial objects with an assumption that John's just pointed out to you, has the sphere at the centre, with it moving in a circle around to cause those movements of those celestial bodies, and then the average is taken. And then you equate that to the equator.
Well, hold on. No. It's
The
not
only real
necessar-
equator
Hold
is on a
hold
model.
on. No, it's not necessarily presupposed to be a sphere in order to get the establishment of the equator. It's purely based on the celestial, not on the Earth being a sphere underneath it. No, that comes afterward, after this equator position and the length has been established. That derivative from the celestials comes first, and after that, you presuppose it's a sphere. That's the only option there is.
I
Well,
see.
then,
So-
Arwin,
I see. Let me summarize. So you take the movement of the stars, and then when you've got the average of where the sun moves across the seasons, then you presuppose that it's the outside edge of a sphere.
Yes! Now you're getting it.
so Arwin,
Well,
why
that-
don't we excuse me, John. Arwin, why don't we use what we can use, which is water? So is it sea curve or sea level? What's the dynamics of water?
Well, it stays level, which is curved when you don't look at it. But yeah, if you look at it, if you're going to measure it, the quantum curve function collapses. So
But it's locally level.
Yeah, locally flat.
it's all level.
right.
But level just outside of measurement means curved. It's
Who said
just
that,
when you
locally
observe
flat?
it, when you analyze it, when you sense it. Yeah, it's going to be straight, of course.
Exactly.
The curve
The
function
quantum.
collapse.
Let me just expand on what Arwin's just explained to you because it's very important. Yes, that's how we end up with locally flat. Obviously, you can only observe within your local area, and the quantum curve collapsing is going to mean that everything within your local area has had that quantum curve collapse. Therefore, you observe everything flat because you can only observe what you can observe. And if you can observe it, it's going to be flat.
And
Exactly.
obviously,
But it's
the
curved.
equator as a whole wasn't measured, obviously. I mean, is some of that equator going through the ocean?
Yes, but it still has a bottom, right? So, you
I
can
mean, I
still
guess
trace
some
the same
people would
line.
say they would use that, like the way you said it is not how people think that this is happening, right? They think it's measured somehow. What you said is not a measurement.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
of
but
course.
that's just
No, it's
that's
not.
just because
There is no
people
measurement
don't
of it.
understand and they get sloppy, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Just like
Alan.
how Rumpus had to explain it using the geometry optics assumption, even though it's technically wrong, because nobody really understands, right?
Well, it's locally level, you see. And level is curved. And locally level shouldn't be confused with locally horizontal. And this is how it all works. But locally, it will appear as it appears, but it's always, on the big or grander scale, it's a globe. But locally, it will always appear level.
Yes, because the horizon is an optics exclusive effect. And since optics causes the curve function collapse, yeah, of course it's going to be straight and level.
Okay.
And
At this point,
No.
I
So
have
how
to
far-
interject.
how
I'm
far
sorry.
are
I'm
we
sorry.
in
Hold
level?
on. Hold on. Got to interject. Fun though it is to sarcastically parrot back the cluster screw of nonsense that is the current trench level rhetoric if you're a globe believer. If you were a newbie listening to this now, you'd be so confused because you've got a whole load of flat earthers parroting off what seem like nonsensical statements. They are in fact just literally what we get told here, but it just seems weird because we've got us with Arwin almost too deadpan saying yes, quantum curve collapse, locally flat. All this nonsense that we get told. The reality, just so we're on some sort of terra firma again away from the devil's advocate fun though it might be, Earth is obviously observably and measurably flat. And all we get from the fundy side of this argument is excuses. Right? That's all we get.
right. No, but that's perfect because you said it right there. It's visibly and measurably flat, right? Because of those effects are all based on observing, right? So yeah, the quantum curve collapse, it totally makes sense. And the Earth can still be a globe. And who says I'm being sarcastic? No, I'm the tip of the sphere of globe belief, right? I can figure a way through, even
You
though
wanna be-
they're all
I
stuck
get it,
in their
Arwin,
own
I get it.
nonsense.
I get it. By
So
day,
Arvin,
hold on. I get it. By day, you're the mild-mannered Arwin, and by night, you're the masked globe believer, and you're the best of the best, right?
Yes,
I see.
my secret hobby. That's not
Hey,
so
s-
secret.
Master
I
of
would
the
like-
Arwin, in navigation, if you're going to assess the distance of a star and it's 2,000 miles away, is it 2,000 miles away locally flat?
2,000 miles away? What?
Yeah, if the star is 2,000 miles away based on celestial navigation, you need a right angle. You need a zero line that goes 2,000 miles. So is now 20 miles, 2,000 miles of flat?
Yes, that's correct. What's wrong with that?
What?
What's wrong with that? You can see the stars, and if you're going to say that they're 2,000 miles in this quantum entangled world of Arwin, then yeah, that's also locally flat. Yes, that would be something you can see, and it applies to the macro. What's the problem?
What? No. Curve function collapse is only for the Earth, right? Because you don't see the curve. You're not looking past the surface of the star or something. You're looking straight at it, so there's not going to be a curve function collapse.
Straight at
No,
it.
there's
Straight at it.
the zenith position of the star is 2,000 miles away, exactly over that part of the Earth. Earth.
I don't know. I'm confused.
That
Are
sounds
we
like
looking?
a presupposed claim, but
Hold on. Are we looking?
Yes.
Are we looking straight at it?
you asking me?
Well, that's the terminology you used. We're looking straight at it, but it's curved. That's your current argument. Straight
No,
at
no,
it.
no. It's when you look straight onto something. You look at a ball, and you're looking straight at the ball. as it were, right down to the center of it. There's not going to be any curve function collapse. It only works when you look past the ball, right? When you're like close up, that's when the curve function collapsed and it unfolds optically like a flat plane.
Oh, I see. No. I maybe understand where you're going. Are you saying this only happens at the diffraction limit?
The diffraction limit, yeah, sure.
What do you mean, yeah, sure. This is the best epic ending to your nonsensical cluster screw of globe parroting there is. So what you're saying is curve function collapse happens at the diffraction limit.
I hadn't thought about that. You might be onto something there.
I think you'll find that's what happens.
I have an objection to the celestial movement claim, though. What he done was traveled in a circle, or what we seem to see as a circle, and developed an R from the circle, and then used it for a sphere. That's not the same thing.
I see. So you're observing something that you could say is moving around in a circle in terms of how we observe the sun's movement, and then you watch that movement, average it, and say, no, this circle, which would have a radius value, is actually the outside edge of a sphere. So, I mean, Arwin did say that. He said, that's the step that you make the assumption. But what you're doing is expanding on it by saying you observe something moving in a circle. That would give you, if you plotted it, a circle on a flat surface, if you're looking at the ground beneath what you observe. However, if you then take that circle and then make it into a sphere, you've then got an R value derived from the movement of a circle above your head, transposed onto the outside edge of a spherical surface rather than a round one.
Exactly. The presupposition comes afterward, right? Because if you're going to measure it presupposing, yeah, then you got it wrong. But if you presuppose it afterwards, then it's all right.
But it would be like me traveling around my block and then saying my block is a sphere. That wouldn't be acceptable.
Well, you could derive the R value from the circle path that you took, and then just say my zenith at point whatever is actually pointing to the center of a presupposed spherical Earth, and the radius is the circle I walked.
Right, but the celestials within that presupposition are not going to line up, right? That's required in order to have a good presuppositional based argument. It has to line up afterward, otherwise you don't really have a case.
So if I have a drone which is mirroring my movements around my block, then I have a case?
As long as it tilts based on
because the celestial bodies still don't line up.
No. Don't throw that in. For you to assume a circle is a sphere, all you need to do is walk around in a circle, gather that data, derive the R value from it, and then say that circle is now a sphere. That's all you got to do. Now, the fact that they've matched it up with the celestial movements is something that should be, and I still do, admire, because it's very complex. Now, that also fixes the radius value. You can't have it be anything else for those celestial movements to work on their presupposition that a circle derived from, in this instance, the averaged movements of the celestial bodies transposed into the outside edge of a sphere from a circle. You've got to have it at that rate. 3959 must be the radius for any of that to work, because you've got the midpoint of the sun being the outside edge.
I'm just saying it's not a measurement if you're not measuring the curvature.
You and your curvature, you can't measure curvature because the curve function collapses.
Yeah, weren't you listening, John? He explained it earlier, right? After you've tracked those celestial bodies or stars, whichever you prefer, then you make the assumption. That's when you turn it into the outside edge. So you say, when you were walking around the circle, if you were following the sun, right? So you walk around what they now call the equator line, and you walk and you follow the sun. You manage to keep up with it. You get back to the beginning, and then you say, what I actually did was walk around the outside edge. I was sideways on a sphere the entire time I walked that path. So once you've made the assumption that you weren't right side up, you were actually pointing to the center of a sphere on its side on the plane of the solar system. That's a pretty big assumption, but that's what you have to do.
Still not a measurement.
Well,
No,
it's always collapsing and you always see it as flat. What makes you think it's a sphere?
Math.
What else could it be?
Well, what we mean,
Math.
what else? You never see it as a sphere. It's always collapsing to flat. So why even say it?
Well, because when you look up, it all kind of looks like spheres, right? So
No.
why would you assume that we're not a sphere?
That's not
then?
the answer. Arwen's hoping that someone else will actually pick up on this argument, and he's just going to put his little fingers together and go when he hears someone arguing it. That's what he really wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all about spherical potential. That's what John is missing. Right? It's about the spherical potential of where you live. That's what it's about. It's not about whether you can measure any of this. It's about its potential to be spherical.
Potentiality.
That's what Arwen's talking about.
Arwen is a circle, a sphere.
And if you want it to be, how much money you got?
That depends. Are you talking Euclidean or Pseudo-Riemannian?
It depends on if you investigate the said thing, right?
No. For 53 million a day, I can make that circular sphere. I absolutely guarantee you.
Well, how you gonna tell? How you gonna prove to me that it is a sphere?
Space.
If all I see
Okay,
is
so
a circle.
The final frontier.
This is how I do it.
I guess y'all are going down.
The
line.
heavens tell you, they line up and tell you it's a
Exactly.
sphere.
Arwen's got it. We get the information from heaven. We send men out in spacesuits to heaven. I mean space. Heaven, space, whatever.
So Arwen, if the Earth's radius, and you have to agree to it, is 3959, then this 20-mile collapse has to happen at 1.22 miles at a 1-foot observer height, and it doesn't.
Never mind all that stuff.
No, it does. It does.
No, it
collapse.
doesn't.
The curve
No.
collapses. Yes. When you look
No.
at it, it's not there.
No, it's supposed to be.
Still
it's supposed
assuming
to
you're
It's
still
supposed to
assuming
be
you're
there.
supposed to be seeing the curve. Come on.
No, it's supposed to be there. It's got limitations on the 3959. Now, if you didn't say 3959, left that vague, you might have a point in your
No, I
fairy
can't
tale.
let this slide, 10th. No, it's almost like you've hand waved him describing quite concisely the curve collapse. It's like you're just ignoring him. It's outrageous.
Yes.
Hold on, I got one for the curve collapse.
Okay.
All right. So it needs the observer. And if you don't have the observer and it's measured, then it's curved, right?
Well, you can have the observer. He just has to be on the left-hand side of the page with the target on the right-hand side of the page with it not changing in actual size, remaining the same feet or meters value. You can have the observer,
Right.
but it can't actually be. You can't
But
actually
there's
be
another
observing.
problem with that.
What?
No, John, there's another problem with that because just like with the knowing which path experiment, if you have a device measuring that gets to your attention, then eventually the curve function will still collapse. So
Yeah, it's like a
you
camera.
literally cannot detect it in any form,
That's
or
correct.
the curve function collapse. That's part of
You,
the.
Well, then
it's better
it's
stop.
not
He's
collapsing.
converting me to a baller.
It's
Well,
not
no,
collapsing, though, if you
Neil.
never
No.
observe it.
He's not trying to convert you to a baller. He's trying to get you to appreciate why the curve and Earth and sphere at radius 3959 can exist in the maths at those rates, but in physical reality you don't experience. You experience curve collapse, therefore flat. So your experience is flat. The world we look at is flat, and that's only because of curve collapse. And what's curve collapse? Well, it's this concept of being on a sphere that only exists in the maths being translated into a world that it can't be translated into, therefore curve collapse. So he's not trying to convert you to a baller, he's trying to convert you to a baller that appreciates that the model of a sphere only exists in the maths, and the idea of seeing it is actually seeing flat and then telling yourself that there's been a curve collapse.
Yeah, it's
Welcome
about
to
the
the club.
spherical potential of your world, Neil.
But see, with the collapse of the wave function, we observe a wave function and then we observe the wave function collapse. So we would have to observe the curve first, right?
Yeah, we do. They're called white swans. This is
That's
how,
Earth curve.
yeah, the white
No, there
swans.
is no curve.
The white swans,
The
white swans.
idea of Earth curve is a misconception based on the lack of knowledge of curve collapse, right?
Exactly.
When first it was established that the Earth was a ball because of the equator length and the star correlations in the sun. Then it was reasoned out, not illogically, that yeah, of course, if you're standing on a literal ball, you're going to have to see that geometric curve. but they didn't know about the complications of optics yet.
Exactly, Arwin.
And of the curve function collapse. So they mistakenly promoted this idea and then gave us flat earthers a chance to actually prove, no, you're wrong. It's flat, see? Because it looks flat.
Yeah, the black swan example with geometric horizon that's no longer visible, can't be seen, can't be measured, destroying the globe model, is then paralleled with somebody who hears that, village idiot, and then goes away and gets a white swan from the local flour mill and says, look, white swan. And the guy holding the black swan under his arm blows on the swan and goes, no, look, this is actually a black swan as well. But you just didn't realise that the swans that are running around here happen to be coming from the mill. Farcical story and analogy there this is. Anyway, what you're holding is actually a black swan. What do you know? So you haven't got a geometric horizon in this one either, or any of them, ever. Any evidence
I said earlier.
I was going to ask.
I said earlier. Sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to tell Eli, just because I've kept it on screen. How would you do it for 52 million a day? Well, I'd do it with what's on screen now. Oh, it's actually Superman. It's actually a Hollywood movie. Same difference. Same piss in a different bottle. Instead of the ISS flying around a CGI sphere that you can't see from the heavens, Superman seeing it for you. So that's how I'd get you to believe you're on a sphere when there's curve collapse and you can't measure it and it's not measurable. You just show them from somewhere that you can't achieve. That would be heaven. I mean the sky vacuum, where Superman is in this picture.
Well, it's because it's 3D rendered backgrounds and tricks that they can actually show what the curved Earth is supposed to look like, because they can ignore curve function collapse, right? If Superman was really there, then he might be flying around the Earth, but it would still look flat to him. But as a camera, you can show it however you like, so they can actually show the world how it is.
No, cameras also experience curve function collapse. You just told us that 2 minutes ago. Don't mess up your own story.
No, hold on. But it's not really filming the Earth. That's not real Earth footage, right? That's a rendering. It's CGI. So they can show it how it's really supposed to look.
No, I understand. You're not going to get curve function collapse in CGI, obviously. It's just going to look however you want it to look. And there's going to be no curve function collapse. It's only when you're experiencing reality optically that you have to experience it all flat, locally or otherwise, because it is.
Right. So it's really to assist you in the realization of what it probably should look like if there was no such thing as curve function collapse, which in reality there is.
And that's what I'm trying to get across to Eli. That's how I'd do it. I'd show you a picture of a curved Earth from space with a geometric horizon in the distance.
Arwen, can you show us how this works with gas pressure without a container?
No. Well, yeah, I could, but it's a whole different story, right? Then we're going to go into gravity and how gravity keeps stuff to the bowl, except for gases. And pseudo-Ramonian force space-time bending does that part.
No, it doesn't. Let's have scientific evidence of gravity.
The initial gravity, Newtonian, relied on a radius.
Right, well, we still have that, though. That's all right.
I only caught half of that. That sounded like a black swan debunking of gravity right there.
Yeah.
So no Earth-based Coriolis works with your fantasy here, and no gas pressure without container works with your fantasy here.
Got a question, I think it's for Arwen. Arwen's on fire today. Think outside the container. Great screen name. Says, this is you, Arwen, I think. If a globe curves in the distance, but nobody is there to see it, does it actually curve? Question mark.
Well, of course. That's the point. Yes, it does. When nobody sees it, it does curve. That's the ironic part of it. It's when you actually see it that it doesn't curve. Because of the curve function collapse.
Thank you for your super chat. Think outside the container. Hope that answers your question. So scientific evidence of gravity, is that a no? No, we haven't got any.
No, we don't have any of that.
It's difficult. Bending of space-time, other medium that emerges the force of gravity, mass attracting mass. Right? It's all difficult. Especially how, like, the mass attracting mass part doesn't count for gases, but still the non-force gravity pseudo-Riemannian force space still prevents the gas from escaping into the vacuum somehow.
No, it doesn't. It's not a force.
It doesn't have to be the force. It's the space that's bending in order for it to basically stay within that space.
Well, I was driving through a
Somehow.
mountain yesterday and I seen rocks come tumbling down the mountain. So why didn't they go tumbling up the mountain? It's obviously something keeping them here on Earth.
They're more dense than the air that surrounds them, so it couldn't support their mass.
I can get real nasty with this shit, but just, yeah, you don't know relative density is caused by gravity.
No, because when you get to the end of the process, when it gets less and less dense in their descriptions, you end up at gas. Well, unless they've got
How
gas
come-
also going down, go boom, boom like the rocks, you can't have it forcing things up. And gas doesn't do that. It expands in all directions, randomly at high speed. It's not going down, go boom, boom, nor is it produced in the sky. Quite the contrary. Liquid turns to gas, goes up into the sky, makes clouds, and then condenses and comes back down as rain. Well, that's a liquid that's coming down from the sky, not a gas. We don't have gas raining on us from sky factories making gas. Made at the ground level.
Yeah, I
goes
agree
up
with
to the
that.
sky. Entropy.
I agree
So
with
you're
that,
saying-
because
so
there
you're
is
saying-
still the buoyancy, right? The buoyancy part of the gravity that's supposed to explain all that, right?
That is
So
what's
yes,
just-
I
that's
agree.
what's just
Gas
debunked.
does not actually go down, go boom boom.
Right, that's buoyancy. Buoyancy is the description of the gas in homogeneous layers, I might add, pressing down to force something that's less dense going up. So that's buoyancy. Part of the description of gravity is buoyancy. But it requires gas to go down.
Right, bending of space-time.
No.
This
Gas
confuses
doesn't do
people
that. Just saying bending of space-time. Gas does not do that, though, Arwin, regardless of you
How do
saying
you
bending
know?
of space-time.
It confuses
How do you know it
people
doesn't do
because
that?
we have an up and down here, obviously. But if you think in terms of space, it's only inward and outward, right? So, like, if you're thinking of, I don't know, say Jupiter, gas giant, it's like, okay, well, why isn't the gas expanding? What it's going down or inward for what reason? When we never experienced this ever.
No, it does expand in all directions, but it still gets hauled up by the hole caused by the bending of space-time in that location, right? The same thing that's causing the force of gravity to make the material stick to it, right? The gases are still kind of like hauled up at that location. due to
Gravity's
the
not a force,
What do you
though.
mean by hold on?
Newtonian
What do
gravity
you
effect.
mean? What do you mean hold? Like what
What do you mean
hold?
force of gravity?
There's,
Gravity's
there's
not
two
force.
different types of gravity, remember? There's mass attracting mass,
No, there
which
isn't.
applies specifically to liquids and solid, and then there's the
Hold on,
bending
hold
of
on.
space-time.
Hold on.
Well,
It applies specifically to liquids and solids. Just doesn't apply to
Yeah, wait a
gases.
Well, no, wait, time out. No, time out. I want to take Arwin on this. But if you're not talking about Newtonian and you're talking about Einstein, you have billions and billions upon billions of masses to work with, which is not. You can't do that with that math.
Masses to work with? No, pseudo-Riemannian force space doesn't really deal
We're talking
in...
about gas,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say there's this pole, like what do you mean exactly?
Well, that's difficult to explain because it takes place in pseudo-Riemannian force space, right? So there's a hole in the space-time causing
What's causing
the
the hole?
emergent force of
What's
gravity,
causing the hole? What's causing the hole?
the bending of space-time.
What's causing the bending?
We don't know.
The hole.
Well, yeah, right? But why there? We don't know. It's just a pattern as, yeah, how it's emerged.
This
Hello,
is madness.
This is Globe Earth.
Hey, Adam.
I don't know what I've missed, but afternoon, guys. Sounds like we're into Arwin's circumdicular logic here, are we?
To a degree.
Are you defending that ball again, Owen?
Yes, but I'm actually, but not circumdicular logic. I've actually relinquished that optics cannot be used to prove the globe, so I found another method to do it.
Oh, I disagree with you there. If it was a globe and you get far enough away, optics would be the thing that would do it because you could see it as a ball.
Well, you definitely haven't seen the entire show because I
doesn't have to.
addressed that the whole way.
Stop, Owen. Stop. Finally, a voice of reason. Yes, that's right, Adam. So while we can argue all day about circumdicular geometry or quantum globe curve collapse, in reality, if it was a sphere, the mathematics that they assert of a sphere would be applicable, because it would be a physical hill getting in the way of stuff in the distance, with its physical nature. And that would be observably obvious from every vantage point, precisely as they claim. So in other words, it would be visually bloody obvious if it was a sphere. We'd notice. Now, what do we get in arguments? Reasons why we don't notice. Reasons why something that we can just see, and we say clock, as flat earthers, they say no, slightly looming non-standard refraction behind a holographic projection of a clock from behind the reified sphere edge horizon debunked by the black swan that you can't see. So it's a refraction hologram of a clock from behind a refracted hologram of a horizon that you can't see or measure. That's what they tell us. Meanwhile, it would be observably bloody obvious if we were actually on a sphere. You'd notice. We don't, because we aren't.
Earlier on, I begged the question, and nobody caught it. I said it was locally level when I was being a sarcastic baller. And I followed that up by stating that locally level and locally horizontal are not the same. And I said it will always appear the way it appears locally, but on a grander scale, it's a globe.
No,
So,
I thoroughly
no
enjoyed.
point.
I thoroughly enjoyed your nonsense, Brian.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know if you got that because I was inferring and I slipped it in there very so quietly that level meant curved. So I was all the time begging the globe question.
Of course, the only way to fly.
If we
Like
lived on a
Superman.
globe, shouldn't I be able to see something on a plane?
You are. You are, Neil.
Yeah, you should see the earth underneath you rotating.
That's what did Nathan's head in, isn't it? Sitting at the back of the plane thinking if only I could go a little bit higher and see it then.
Nicely. It's the only way to fly.
So they made it that only astronauts are able to see this sphere.
Or from a 3-foot or a 6-foot observer height, you can see a boat going over the horizon.
Yes, that's one of those.
To be fair,
That's an interesting one. It's a mainstream contradiction. That's right. So in mainstream claims of globe, that's one of the ones that you can potentially hang out someone to dry without being censored or removed from the airwaves. If you're ever in a televised situation, you ask them about that contradictory position that they would actually assert. You can't get high enough to see the Earth curve. From a commercial liner, you're not high enough to see the curve of the Earth. But simultaneously, they'll assert that you can measure it by way of its obstruction. Who's making that noise?
well,
Well, the
to be
issue
fair,
is.
so I was trying to jump in first before. To be fair, or to be more precise, with the math, you're supposed to see a drop. Just like with any obstruction, if a building is obstructing my vision and I increase my elevation, the edge of that building or the top of that building will begin to get lower as I increase. And mathematically speaking, that's exactly what is simulated and what's supposed to happen on a sphere with a radius of 3,959 also. But we don't experience any of that.
Can I take my Glober gloves off for a minute? Because I had a
You can after I
non-Glober
thank.
remark.
After I thank.
You can.
You can after I thank. Think outside the container. Who says Craig FTFE's bulge collapsed upon observation? I don't know what you're talking about, but thank you for the super
Nice.
chat.
Yeah, I just wanted to expand on what the globe elite should be saying, because you can't see the curve from high up. The planes don't go high enough. You have to move beyond the firmament to see the Earth as a globe. Huh?
What firmament?
The firmament that keeps all our gas pressure in.
Right. No, but it would be funny to say it like that, because like you have to move beyond the firmament to see it as a globe. Really, how do you do that? Right.
Well, if you think about it, it has to be a covering of firmament, because what's the sides? I mean, it's got to be. We have gas pressure, so it's got to be hitting sides, top, and bottom. So it makes perfect sense what the Bible says, that God put a firmament over us.
Whatever it is, I agree.
Yeah, but meanwhile, the point of this was to say that they take pictures of Earth from space, and who's getting these pictures? Well, spacemen. And where are they getting them from? Well, from heaven. And can you get there? Well, no, you can't get there.
Well, how did they manage to get beyond the firmament?
They didn't. They just lied about it. They just filmed it on a stage and then made fourth-generation copies that were claimed to be live from places like the moon, and then told people that they went to a light in the sky that they could never actually get to.
Meanies.
Goes back to
Don't
Ted
forget
Man's-
the blue screens on the ground-based ISS stage.
It's got progressively worse in
ISS
quality.
is
hasn't
well within green screen era. Blue screen is way before. Like moon landing is blue screen era. ISS is pretty much green screen era.
it? No, the moon landing was stop motion. It wasn't blue screen or green screen.
All of it? Really? They did no blue screen whatsoever? Well, maybe you're right, because blue screen had a lot of problems. It was very apparent when something was blue screen. So
No
maybe
You
you're
mean
right.
the Earth landing?
There was no
Not
computer
moon landing?
images, right?
Well, just
They apparently had the power of a Casio bloody watch to land the thing on the claimed journey through the sky vacuum that doesn't exist, right? And you think, what, they're creating computer-generated image? No. I don't think you even had, you haven't even got the computers to do it then. So far from it. No, they're just doing it with animation. They're just filming stuff next to scale models.
Well,
yeah, but
hold
they-
on,
they-
Nate.
hold
Hold
on.
on. That's
Wait,
not
wait.
entirely true. Like the CIA back then had really amazing computers. Yeah, now they pale, of course, in comparison to the development. But they even had
How do
like
you know?
the moon surface rendering. Remember, that was very early, way before the computer age.
Look what they were
no.
able to accomplish. They were able to accomplish. They have the whole world believing that they landed on this light in the sky. That's a major accomplishment.
Yeah, it is, isn't it,
No,
Neil?
it's
Yeah.
better than that. They went to Antarctica, right? Werner von Braun and the rest, and they found moon rocks before they went and landed on the rock that we call the moon. So they were
That's
begging
quite
the
good.
question that it was a rock and giving everyone the impression it was a rock before anyone ever supposedly went there.
Think about
And
what I just
therefore
said,
feed
though.
the truth.
Think about what I just said, though.
Yes,
They
Neil.
had people watching that television and totally believing that that was going on.
But the television were very small back then, and people were not that disillusioned with media liars yet,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. The TV was a very new format to be brainwashing people with, and most people didn't have one. They were listening to it on the radio for a start. So, no.
think there was-
most
Makes
people
it,
weren't.
that makes it all the
government
more
back
clever.
then.
It's a big difference, Neil, because back then newspapers were already around for a long time. And when people pick up a newspaper and read like a politician saying something or whatever, then they would probably be like, oh, yeah, liar, we get it, right? But the TV hadn't gone through that yet. So it was all new and
Have
fresh.
you gone through
They
it?
weren't expecting
That
to
makes it all the more
Spit
clever.
on
and it
Arwen's
wasn't
ideas
new
of what
and
the TV's
fresh.
for. No. What do you mean not gone through it yet? That's what TV is.
No,
These
but
are acting like it was
to the people.
1920,
No, but
1969. Everybody had a TV. It wasn't the 50s.
But they didn't have a lot of computers.
well, TV was still kind of rare.
No, TV was not.
I'd
No way.
agree with Arwen there. Certainly, tales of ours. People were around other people's houses. People were on the street looking at in a TV shop in the UK. TVs weren't weren't commonplace.
Okay,
when
fine.
In
Well, there were-
1969.
Okay, right. Stop.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah.
Look, let's just
Oh
say
my God.
only
Let me
after
just
people had
make
it
the
on telly.
point.
Hold on. Who
Yeah.
cares? This is
But no.
kind of moot. It doesn't matter how many people saw it. Neil's point's getting lost. Neil's point is
Well, that's what I
regardless
was
of
trying
how
to
the...
back up. But
Go on, Adam.
so the point of that being that it's kind of irrelevant the medium that the information was delivered in. It's the fact that there was still a level of innate trust that what was given to you from government was truth. That's the beauty of the scam they played, because they didn't just pull it off on America. They pulled the whole world, this hoodwink over. And that was... Imagine trying it now. You wouldn't believe a word of it, but there was that inherent level of trust in the institutions that provided us information then. But this was real.
Yeah, I agree with Adam on that point. But in '69, I was 10 years old, and there wasn't anyone I knew in California, friends who didn't have a TV. So TVs were around. Most people in America saw it on a TV in the areas that I lived. Now, if you were poor and you couldn't afford a TV, then that's a different story.
Get you, you TVs.
Americans in their riches and all that.
Aren't you posh?
Was it flat screen as well back then?
Yeah. Was it big and colourful? Was it bigger than 17-inch?
Wow, look what I started.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
No, but
You're all going to have to wait a second because I'm going to shout out Retro Bill, who says, McToon's latest argument is that 8 inches per mile squared is wrong. It doesn't take into account observer height and is meant to measure parabolas. Nevertheless, it's pretty damn accurate for measurements under 1,000 miles. That's not a latest argument, Retro Bill. Thank you very much for the super chat, first and foremost. That is standard rhetoric.
Yeah,
I'll go even further back. I remember living in Iran when I was 7, just before we came to America, and my dad had a black and white TV. And I remember watching American Westerns on it and Mickey Mouse. And so the whole point is that even in the country of Iran, if you're working, you made money, and the new technology came, you go buy it. And then people would come over to the house to watch the TV. But when I came to America, everybody had a TV.
Okay. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley. Oh, also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!